Hello everyone. I am Sharifuddin Ahmed Rana. I am from Malaysia, and today IBM Television started their new show, and it's all about economy, cultures, and developments of Malaysia and Asia. So I just want to start these sessions and specifically with two of the very renowned professors and professionals from International Islamic University, Malaysia. I want to introduce Deputy Rector for Islamizations and Global Network in International Islamic University, Professor Dr. Noor Farida Abdul Manaf, as well as
Hello.
I have Professor Ainul Zaria. She is also from International Islamic University.
Assalamualaikum. Hello.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you, ma'am?
We are good.
Yes.
Good.
Yes, thank you. I want to start with Professor Dr. Noor Farida Abdul Manaf. Madam, can you please introduce yourself? Where are you from? What you do? And we want to know more about International Islamic University Malaysia and about you.
Okay, thank you, Sharif. My name, as shown on the screen, is Noor Farida Abdul Manaf. I'm the Deputy Rector of Internationalization and Global Network at the International Islamic University Malaysia. I have been teaching at the university for almost 30 years, after coming back from my PhD in Australia. And I come from a small town in Pahang called Raub, which is about 2 hours from Kuala Lumpur. And I went to school there and a few other places in Malaysia before I went to New Zealand to study English literature. So the university was established in 1983, way back as the repercussion of a meeting in Makkah in 1977, where there was a concern about education for the Muslims around the world after colonization ended. So I think there were several Islamic universities that were built in Africa, Malaysia, and Pakistan. But IUM seems to prosper since its inception in 1983. I would let Prof. Ainul continue because she has been at the university as long as the university itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Ainul, I want to know more. Even our audience want to know more about your background, where you're from, what your teachings, and I know that you have engagement with policy discussions and other things. Can you introduce yourself and your research work with our audience?
Okay, Sharif, I think this is my third session with you. I've shared a lot about me, but still insist on hearing more. So let me.
This is for different audience today.
Yeah. Let me just share what I've been doing. I'm a graduate of the International Islamic University. As Prof said, it was established in '83. This university was actually the brainchild of the former Prime Minister Tun Mahathir, and it was executed by Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, and we had our own professor Tasri Kamal Hassan, who was the person responsible to develop the entire framework for the university. And the university is actually very much in response to Islamization. You see, in the 80s, there was a lot of after the Iran Revolution, there was a lot of demand within the youth in Malaysia to establish Islamic institutions. So the government of the day at the time, led by Tun Mahathir, they established the International Islamic University Malaysia, Islamic finance, Islamic banking, and Islamic insurance scheme. And in fact, during the 80s, most of the Malaysian institutions, government agencies started introducing Islamic aspects into the governance and administration. So as a student of this university, I believe that we have produced, especially from the law school, we have produced many law graduates who are imbued, who are trained with both the civil law and Sharia law. So I mean, we have equal portion of both. Yeah, so they are not. We are not neglecting the civil law. In fact, they can practice in the courts, the civil court and Sharia courts. So our graduates are actually, for us, we believe they're holy, and they can contribute more to the world by bringing in Islamic values, especially Islamic financing, Islamic legal practice, yeah, Islamic administration. So there's a lot of. I think we have produced thousands of graduates for Malaysia as well as many other countries. Prof. Farida will let you know more about the international. She is the Deputy Vice Chancellor, or we call Deputy Director for
Yeah.
Internationalization. Yeah.
All right.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. I have specific questions about Malaysia because even
Mm.
I am also from abroad. I live in Malaysia. Yes, but I can share many experience in terms of my point of view. But I want to know more about how actually Malaysia built up this education hub. And we know many international students actually now come from different countries in Malaysia for study purpose. Even IIUM is very famous for, I want to say,
Mm.
even before I come to Malaysia, I know IIUM because of debating and many intellectual activities. Can you share these things? And, yes. And most important thing is that I want to know more about the COVID situation in Malaysia, how they
Mhm.
tackle and what you want to share.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like two questions, Prof. I know, for us to
Yes.
answer. So I would like to
Prof.
start first, and Prof. I
Yeah.
know probably he can elaborate further. Now, I think it has to go back to Malaysia being known for we are good at organizing things way back after independence, since the 70s, for example. Countries like South Korea, different countries come to us to learn from us. And I think it's because we are so good at organizing things, uh, lawmaking, policies, and so on. So it has to go back to our post-independence nation building. And I would have started with post race riots in 1969. There was a race riot in 1969 where there was a clash between Chinese and Malays because of the disparity or the gap between the rich and the poor. The rich always seen to be the Chinese, and the Malays were way back, stricken by poverty. So I think the concern was that, and the government, as a lesson of that race riot, started to make different policies, economic policies, education policies. There were different policies in the 70s, and we built on from that. I think it's a long way, and the system of education, I would have said, although people are a bit critical of our system of education, but I think looking at the way how we handle COVID will prove that it is actually the kind of citizenship, that we produce out of our own system, education system, that we are law abiding, that we are resilient, and so on. So that could have come, and I believe that must have come from our national education system. So I would pay tribute to that. And also, I think, and because of that, we have developed, or we have gone a long way from 70s to 2020, and therefore, as you get better, of course, you want to go bigger. So from national to regional, because students from around the region have started coming to us way back in the 80s from Indonesia, Brunei, Singapore, and of course we would like to push the barrier further, to other regions. And I think with the establishment of IIUM, we were the first to expand it to Bosnia because of the war situation, and under the premier then, Prime Minister Mahathir, he was the one who brought in, this international student for war-torn country, Iraq, and so on. So it came from that spirit of empathy, of compassion of a leader that was very visionary. So I think it goes back to leadership as well. I'll stop there and let Prof. I know
Yeah. Yes.
continue.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prof.
Mm.
After the independence, the young Malaysian government, which was left in such a state that we were we were exploited lah. Our natural resources were very badly exploited. and when the colonial masters left us. But it's not that all bad. They left us with good administration system, government administration system, education system, infrastructure. So when they left the young Malaysian government, before I'm going back an earlier decade before Prof mentioned about 1969. So I'm going back to 1957. So
Okay.
when the young Malaysian government was formed, and then we had the first Prime Minister, Tunku Abdul Rahman. Tunku was, he's a lawyer by profession, yeah. And except for Tun Mahathir, mostly they're not from scientific background, I think. So Tunku was very much aligned with all the other races. So they respected him very much. Actually, the respect for Tunku was the fact that bind people together. And Tunku made the plans, first Malaysia plan. In the first Malaysia plan, there was this strategy adopted, two-pronged strategy. One is to eradicate poverty, and the other one is restructuring of society. Like Prof mentioned just now, poverty was there, but poverty was very much felt in the rural areas, in the kampungs. Sharif, you know, it's a kampung, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
our
It's a
rural areas.
village,
Yeah,
village,
yeah,
yeah.
village, yeah, village. So during the British, they had this kind of admission system where they divide and rule. So they left the Malays in the kampungs, except for the elite Malays, the royalties and the elite Malays, means they are elite families, yeah. So they were in the urban centers and urban and government agencies, but the general population were left in the villages to look into farming, subsistence crop like paddy, because those days paddy, even now, all Asians eat rice, and Malaysia, we have Asian race here, so everyone eat rice. I think Bangladesh also, isn't it?
Yes.
So the demand for rice was very high. So what the British did to avoid foreign exchange, to avoid import, so they kept most of the Malays in the rural, and they introduced Malay reservation land, so the Malays would be there to plant paddy for the country, yes, subsistence crop. Then the Chinese were in the mining sector, tin mining sector, because Chinese, they had endurance. They can work in very hard conditions as well. So mine, yeah, tin mine. So the Chinese were brought into work, and then the Indians, most of the Hindus, from South India, they were brought in two groups. One educated, who are brought in as supervisors and managers of the plantation, and the others were workers. So they brought in to work in the rubber plantation, tea, tea plantation, as well as infrastructure construction. There is a railway and the road system. So see, different race in Malaysia. The trouble is the race was equated with the type of work, and also the religion with the race. We have this unique blend, yeah, which is quite difficult sometimes for us to differentiate. So what, after the independence, the government said, okay, now let's restructure. That's why the restructuring came in. Poverty is one thing, but restructuring. So they started promoting intra-migration. That means from rural to urban centers, and industries were open. So industry and education. The two strategies adopted to address poverty and restructure society was industry and education. So education was the core. Yeah? Government spends, even now, Prof. I think the government sets about billions more. The biggest budget for the country spending comes from for education. Yeah, Prof. Betul tak?
Yeah,
So the
yeah. I think so.
budget for the country spending is for education. Then healthcare and whatever next come, but education. So the country is very much focused on education. Like Prof, I also went abroad on government fund, yeah. In the 60s, 70s, 80s, until the millennium, the government spent billions of ringgit to, send us
Yeah,
overseas,
yeah,
abroad.
yeah.
We come to
Yes,
Malaysia, but we go overseas to get
yeah,
European or Japanese or Australian, the other side, or the US, that training back to the country. Now we stop
yeah.
sending that money. Yeah.
And that's how,
Then,
yeah, that's
yeah,
how
Prof.
we build our middle class,
Yes.
because of this
Mm,
education thing. So the middle
mm.
class group is now the biggest, I think. But I think of late, we have to review that whether it is still so, with COVID, the impact of COVID. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Then with that plans, we brought in the new economic policy. The new economic policy was to address the restructuring of the strong society, that is the Malay society. See, Malays were indigenous people. Okay, there's so many debates about this, who came first, who came last. Actually, the Malays are the indigenous. Indigenous means the Bumi Putra. Okay, we have the natives. Similar, you go to Australia, you go to New Zealand, you go anywhere of the world where they say the Aborigines and the Maoris, but the British became, although they came later, but they become like indigenous people of the country. But the Malays were indigenous even before British came, because you see the Malay world is in such diaspora. The Malay world is huge actually. It's not Malaysia. Malay world extends to Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos. Yeah, we have from Philippines, the Indonesian islands. Yeah, Singapore. Singapore is part of Malaya then. So the Malay world is huge, and there were few different group. Yeah, the seafarers as well as those who work on the plant on the subsistence crop, the paddy. Yeah, so this was the Malay uh, physiology or something like that. So the Malay economics is very much self-sufficient. They were not relying on anyone. But with the new economic policy to create the middle class, the government started creating more positions in the government to bring more Malays. But it's not that the Malays are not qualified. We must always correct this. They are qualified. They are more than qualified, because you see, when we send them abroad, they come back with the international education as well as local education. And Sharif, our education system is very good. That's why you are here, and we have many students from all over the world coming to Malaysia to study. Beside UIA, there's also other universities taking international students. So the Bumi Putra policy is to help to develop more Malays, to bring in more Malays into the mainstream economy, education, and other sectors as well. I hope I.
Yes, yes, ma'am. More specific thing is that at present situation we saw Malaysian healthcare system. They actually handle COVID-19 situation very smartly. Even USA, Europe, and Australia, even around the world, they want to know more how they handle this so well, and what the inner history. Can you, as you are scholars and you are involved policy development and other things. Can you share something about these things?
Okay, if I can just briefly point you out to the report that came out from Central Bank Malaysia, I think in June. So it was pointed out how the government had strategized 6 stages to build the economy together, especially during this period. They have what they call resolve, stage 1, resilience, stage 2, restart, 4 is recovery, 5 is revitalize, and 6 is reform. We have gone to the first 3 stages, and I think our fourth is probably in a few months or in the coming weeks or months, recovery. So the reason is that, when we shut down, when we lock down, Malaysia happened to be the worst economy in Southeast Asia. And because of the transitional period of government change and that could be one of the reasons, because we had time delay to restart or to recover. So, we lose out during that period of transition, and now we're picking up. And one of the ways to pick up, to recover quickly, is to manage our COVID situation. And because of that, the government is serious in making sure that the COVID situation does not get into our way, or else we will plunge further. Our economy will plunge further, and it'll be quite difficult to recover if you don't manage it well. I think with that kind of spirit, but I won't give total what do you call tribute to the government alone. It has to go to the Malaysians as citizens. Had it not for us being so law-abiding, when the government said wear masks, don't go out, we did not go to the streets like some other countries and protest and demanding our human rights and so on, because we know this will take us back as a nation, as people. If we want to move forward, we have to forget our differences and come together and unite so that we can recover faster, right?
Yes. Madam, Professor Ainul, what you want to share about this policy and the present situation? What the initiative Malaysia taking right now to overcome from these situations?
This COVID-19 is an unprecedented event, isn't it? All over the world, even US can't manage it. Yeah, but Malaysia being a small country, and one thing we must, how can I put it? Malaysia is a country where the interest of the people is often prioritized compared to anything else. You can see the transition. Remember when we had the election last time, when the new government was elected in, yeah, was very, very unprecedented because uh, first time we have a change of government, yeah, after independence. Yeah, when we changed, things were so smooth. There was no chaos, nothing, because the government machinery. We have the politicians as the policymakers at that level, but the government machinery that comprises all of us, including me and Prof. We are from the academia, but we have the administration, the governance sector, where every ministry is run by the uh, chief secretary, and then we have the chief secretary for the government, and then we have the state governments. So the entire government machinery was functioning effectively at all times, at all times. Yeah. So even when we have the recent change of government in March recently, just during the COVID turmoil, we had this change of government. Things went smoothly as well, and when it was smooth, again we credit this smoothness to the existing government machinery. So our government machinery is the one we salute. Of course, you can say, people say, oh, Malaysia has corruption. Yes, which country is not free from corruption? If you go and check US, you go and check Australia, anywhere, there is corruption. But it's the level of corruption that we, but our government machinery is very efficient in the sense that they can manage the country well. Yeah. So this is where the economies, the healthcare, we have the National Security Council, which is the body that brings together all the brains and all the resources to talk about how to manage COVID-19 pandemic. And when we close down, you see, when we close down, at the moment, we have about nearly 2 million locals who are unemployed. Not 1 million, 2 million, yeah, because not only we're feeling the pain, and the government couldn't collect tax. And then there was this stimulus package. You see, in March, when we closed down, 15th of March, businesses were shocked because everything had to close down except for the food stalls and the supermarkets, and I mean non-essential businesses were closed down, isn't it? So where can they go? That if you don't sell the your product, there's no money, there's no business. So, and then of course when they close down, there's also damages. Yeah. So this is the impact of the close down. Then universities were closed down as well, and but of course universities we bounced back with online teaching. That was easily managed, but again we have problem issues with that. The government was very fast in introducing stimulus package. So the finance minister brought in stimulus package, and the healthcare also was so expensive because we are doing when we test the COVID, it is not like, I mean, we have 32 million people, but when we go for the testing, we have to go for a person. They target lah. They target but still we spend so much on the, I mean, on testing the people who are suspected, yeah, to be. So this costs us billions of ringgits as well. So all these expenses on the government, and the government has limited income now because our export, I mean, all over the world, export has reduced. Of course, there's nothing much, no economic activities was moving. Then we also have issues with bringing in things into the country. Again, tax, government couldn't collect tax from businesses because the stimulus package, government had to hand out stimulus package, financial aid, but government couldn't impose tax, couldn't collect tax. So these are the constraints we have. Again, due to good strategies, economies, and our national bank, central bank, Bank Negara Malaysia, which is, of course, we are not economists, yeah, we just spend our money, So these are the people. I think Malaysia has good brains, lah. Is it, Prof?
Yes, this is very important. This is very important. When I analyze with the other country, I find that Malaysia has good intellectual property, and when any nation has a good intellectual property, and then they can move forward and they can work together and they can make something exceptional. And even I want to say why I come to Malaysia, because even for Bangladesh, Pakistan, Indonesia, many countries, Malaysia actually a model of development. Malaysia is a combination of Islamic country as well as a modern country. It's a modern Islamic country. So here we are secured with our family, we are secured with our religion, and we are secured with your peaceful attitude. I want to say Malaysian people is very peaceful always. I want to give the neutral opinion. Beside that, I want to know like when we move around Malaysia, we find many smart women like you, like Professor Dr. Noor Farida and Professor Dr. Ainul Zaria. There are many women, smart women. They are contributing for academia or corporations. They are managing their family. They are driving car, and this is very very positive for Muslim country. What's the inner history? How actually Malaysian women are so progressive, and how they actually contributing for economy?
Can I go first, Prof.
Yeah,
Aina?
sure.
Yes, ma'am, definitely. Yeah.
I think it has to do with the region because the Malay land, Indonesia included, we have matriarchal tradition. We come from a matriarchal tradition, even before the coming of Islam. The region has been matriarchal. The adat or the culture, yeah, of the Minangkabau, for example, yeah. And I think because of that, the women had always been familiar with having that kind of freedom to do and say. And then, contrary to what pro culture or pro adat people say, with the coming of Islam to the region, it kind of like reinforces or strengthens the existing culture that respects women. But this is a contrary to a debate that says Islam actually brought down women because women were freer before the coming of what they call the Arabanized Islam, because they say, well, before the coming of Islam, women can own property, they have more inheritance, and so on and so forth. But I disagree because I think Islam reinforces that kind of freedom to women because I think it was those men, and for this reason, for every practicing Muslim man, they are our backbone. I wouldn't be here. Prof. Ainul would not be here had it not been the full support of our Islamic practicing husbands who were there. I left my family to do PhD in Australia, and it was my husband and his family who supported me. I have a child back home, and they said, "Go ahead, do what you have to do, and then we will look after the child," and so on. So, I would pay tribute to practicing Muslim men because they follow what is advised in the Quran. Now, going back to Islam, when Islam came, it was an Islamic scholar who studied in Al-Azhar, Sheikh Hadi, who came back and said, we must educate our women. We must encourage our girls to go to school. It was a man. At a point when the British came in, the British said, oh, just give them sewing lesson, cooking lesson, and nothing else. But it was a Muslim man who came in, no, give them proper education, mathematics, reading, and so on and so forth. And as early as the 50s, there were women who went abroad to study, before independence. But they came through this so-called Islamic Malay school. So I think because of that, and I think I would appeal to all women watching this in Malaysia, know your right. The right is there in the Quran. You must read the Quran yourself and take charge of that knowledge. Don't expect other people to interpret it for you. Because if people interpret it for you, then they will use it to their advantage. So that's all I have to say for now. And then perhaps Prof. Ainul can continue.
Yes, Prof. Ainul, I want some detailed analysis of women empowerment in Malaysia, how it works, and most importantly, I want to know more. Like you also getting your finish your study from global arena, from Europe and from USA and many other places. So how do you interact the European or American culture with the Malaysian culture? How it works?
Oh, okay. When we talk about Malaysian culture, you know that Malaysia is very unique, isn't it? In the sense that We have our adat, that is the customary practices imbued with Islamic values. And as Prof. Farida just mentioned, the Islamic values imbued with adat is what that makes, especially the Asian, the Southeast Asian. Remember, actually, the Malay diaspora, the women here have always been playing a very, very important role in all the uh, as in all aspects of life. Yeah. Economic activities, homemaking. Yeah, this is why I've explained earlier that we have something called jointly acquired property, where even the court recognized that women got equal rights in sharing property, matrimonial property when they separate or when the husband passes away. So there, we have many, many rights. As Prof said, women must know what are their rights, and of course they need to be supported by their family. Yeah, the family
Mm.
support is very important. If family doesn't support, then it's not easy lah. When you have small children, you need the family support, especially the husband who's there to support and encourage. And I think most of us, we have that encouragement back home, where education is prioritized for girls as well. Not only before, prior to independence, when finances were low, priorities were given for the male child, but now the female child is also given priority in securing education. Women empowerment in Malaysia and Southeast Asia, especially, is increasing. In Malaysia, we have women empowerment. We've been is there all the time. When a woman doesn't take her rights, or she ends up in an abusive relationship, sometimes one, we must always say that is the risk, something fated. But at the same time, they can try to overcome this by getting support. So we have many organizations providing support for women, Muslim and non-Muslim. And we also have legal aid centers that also give support to women who are who are in need of legal protection, legal representation. And also we have special homes established to give them shelter and support. Again, we have the zakat system. Zakat is Islamic a charity. Zakat system also helps to top up the government's financial support for the underprivileged and marginalized and disabled group. Yeah. So when we look at single parent, I rather not call single mother, because we have single parents. Even male are sometimes are single. Yeah. So we have single parent. We have orphan children. We have disabled. So all these people they have some sort of support from the government. The Malaysian government is very good with all this support. So we have many policies. We have the Ministry for Welfare. So the entire ministry is focused on providing welfare. Besides the ministry, government agencies, the Zakat organization at the state level, we also have NGOs. We have very prominent NGOs like Mercy Malaysia. I'm sure, Sharif, you have heard about Mercy Malaysia.
Yes.
It's a humanitarian mission. Then we have Islamic Relief, and we have many, many small NGOs who looks after the poor, provide them with support. During COVID-19, it is indeed a very amazing experience. We have the government trying to do everything by itself, but it's not easy for the government to reach out. We had many NGOs. In fact, even Prof. Farida gathered a group of her friends, to send funds to the villages. And this did not look at race or religion. Isn't it, Prof? I know your
Yeah.
team into the natives. Yeah, Prof can share with this on this later a bit. So you see, we have everyone moving. That happens because we are empowered. And most of these NGOs are also with women. It's not that women are not involved. Even the Rohingya refugees, they were helping.
Yes.
Although
Yes.
there's a lot of negative, issues about how we treat the refugees. No, even the refugees were treated well during the COVID-19, and the treatment and the treatment for COVID were all given up. So it's the government that really looks into the welfare. I honestly believe our government, maybe it's not the best like New Zealand, but New Zealand is a small country, but we are one of the best. If you ask me, I mean, history shows, and whatever happened during the COVID-19 shows that, to me, Malaysia is one of the best country where the people's interests are really taken care. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. This is very interesting discussions, and particularly I have actually more like questions, and I think our audience also want to know more about Malaysian ecosystem. Like with educations, with a knowledge-based society, with your policy, with your industrialization, when you grow your economy in Malaysia, what type of challenge actually Malaysia has to face, and how they overcome these challenges? Can you share something? Yeah. Yes.
Prof.
I think at the moment I'm a little bit worried about our race relations, and I
Mhm.
think during this lockdown, it would give us a lot of time to reflect on where we're going in the future. And I think it is because of globalization and because of we allow we have gone international with our education system. So not every Malaysian go to national school. Some of them choose to go to international school. Sometimes they leave and go to school in Australia, Canada, and so on, as young as perhaps below 12 or below 15. So that can be a problem because, as a nation, we have to be on the same page. But if your education system is so diverse, we already have our vernacular schools. Some quarter of our population goes to Tamil school or Chinese school up to a certain stage. Yeah? But I think they will have other system once they finish a certain level of schooling. I think at the age of 13, then they will have the choice of either going to national school or private school. And many would choose to go to private school. So in the end, the kind of generation that we had post 69, 1970s, whereby there was a concerted effort to bring people together, living in harmony. The policy was clear, and all school children would embrace that. We are taught every morning to sing Negaraku and Muhibah. Muhibah means what? Integration. So we sing
Integration.
before we enter our class. And with that, we embrace that spirit of we coexist and mutual respect for one another. I come from that generation. My school was mixed Chinese, Indian. This was like more than 50 years ago. Until today, we are still good friends. We are like blood sisters and blood brothers. But I don't see that in the current generation, where different race go different ways, very suspicious. The distrust is there. So unless the government does something to patch up this, I don't see. I think it's going to be very difficult to have that one voice, one single aspiration to grow as a nation. It's
Mhm.
not that we don't allow diversity of voices, but at least we have a common ground to where we want to go as a nation. Not like, okay, I want, leadership. One thing about leadership, there must be followers. If you don't have followers, how do you lead? And the country will go disarray if you don't have that kind of leadership. So I would foresee that economic problems we can easily overcome that. There are so many brains in the country, from MIT, from Harvard, from Oxford, from local universities. We can easily mend that. But I think human relations you have to build it. You have to build trust. So I foresee that as the number one problem of this country.
Yes, Prof. Ainul, Madam actually said that yes, Malaysia have many many brilliant people, and those who can handle Malaysian economy. But Malaysian major challenges that they have different cultural people. So what do you have any solution? Do you think that okay, we can overcome from this situation and we can make more efficient economy and more attractive economy for global community?
Okay, taking from Prof. Farida, Prof. I do support Prof's statement saying that she's very worried about unity and harmony, yeah, as being the main issue that will affect the economy. Actually, we come from. I mean, she's not much older than me, yeah, and I'm not much younger than her. We're from the same generation.
Thank you.
Yeah, we went to a school where we have different races. But in Malaysia, the race and religion, a Malay is a Muslim, a Chinese is a Buddhist or Christian or mostly Tao, and then the Hindus are either the Tamils are Hindus or Christians, but majority are Hindus. So it is always race and religion are intertwined. So when we were in school, we mixed as blood sisters, but there was no racial sentiment at all. People were just recovering, and Malaysia's stability, Malaysia's economic growth, the most important factor is political stability and unity, racial unity. These are the two important factors that made us progress. There was research done by US, not UK. After independence, US conducted a research on, they have the special CIA, isn't it? They did a research on Malaysia, how Malaysia is able to grow fast, rapid progress in the 60s, because we're growing quite well, in the late 60s, I had the microchip because I was doing research on development. They identified that political stability and racial unity is the main factor, two main factors. Now, I realized that when, again, quoting Prof said, they go to vernacular school, yes. The other one is parents are very affluent. They send their children overseas education. So when they go overseas, they don't really feel the sense of belonging to Malaysia is not there. They feel that, oh, we want equality like in Canada, but is there real equality in all the around the world? I don't think so. If there is equality, there is no racial discrimination. How come we have the issue in US where Black Lives Matters is now a big issue now, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it consistently comes up. So this morning I was writing a small paper on racial discrimination in residential tenancy. You see, when you want to go for tenancy, there is this discrimination. You must be not, basically the Chinese will say we don't want non-Chinese, and the Malays will say we want Muslims. So this happens. But the biggest, the statistic shows that the biggest, the biggest group that discriminates are the Chinese, and the biggest group that get discriminated are the Indian. I have the statistics because I was preparing a small policy paper for the minister this morning. So you see, Malaysia has in our constitution, we have the federal constitution, which is the basic document that regulates things. So Article 8 provides equality before the law. And the law provides very clearly there is no discrimination. There's no discrimination religion, race, whatever. There is totally a word of discrimination. Islam is the religion of the land, but other religions are allowed to be practiced peacefully. So at the moment, we have 6 major religions in Malaysia recognized, and every religious festival we get holiday. We are lucky people. So Malaysia recognizes also. We have established the consultative council for the interfaith adherence. As a ministry, we have Department of Unity under the Prime Minister's department. It's a very core department. That's why it's under the Prime Minister's department. This department that I do some training for them, mediation for the religious leaders. To reduce the tension, we tell them, okay, we don't want to have any friction. We want to learn how to moderate our differences. So when we come to the school, education is very important. Even in UIA, you can ask your friends. We don't really indoctrinate them in Islamic fundamentalism. We tell them this is Islam, the beauty of Islam. You tell Islam, this is Islam to the world. Islam is beautiful, isn't it? There's no compulsion, like Prophet did. There is no arbitrariness in Islam. Islam is a beautiful religion. It allows non-Muslims to come together. In fact, we are not supposed to belittle other people's religion and faith. So this is a very, very important juncture in Malaysia. Because after independence, the government introduced something called Rukun Negara. Rukun Negara means national declaration, where the first and foremost is belief in God. So all Malaysians are required to believe in God. So when you believe in God, God is the creator. When you believe in God, God tells you what? Don't disturb your neighbor, your fellow human being. Respect the golden rule of all belief, all religion is that respect your neighbor. This is a golden rule. 2, respect the ecosystem, the environment. So this is what we need to live in a very harmonious world. Believe in God. So that is a very important thing which we embed in our education. In fact, in our school notebooks, at the back of the cover, we have this Rukun Negara principles. Very interesting. Everyone must see it. And the national anthem. Every morning we must sing national anthem. Then every morning we must collect rubbish as well. Then we have the teacher to clean the whiteboard, the blackboard. There was no whiteboard then. We have to sweep. We didn't have any workers to clean. We do all the cleaning except for one or two gardeners. We never had any other help in school except the students. So we had the discipline. We really had involvement. We had the sense of belonging. We used to rush to clean the board for the teacher. Now students will look at you, wiping the board. There is, we respect our teacher, carry the books for them. There was that time, Gun Prof, so lovable, so like, we are into it. We love the moments in school. We love the moments in school because we had friends waiting to share food. And the non-Muslims, honestly, in Malaysia, they respect the Muslims halal. Very, very respectful. Even in the cafe, it's all halal. Even with the Chinese sales, they have a separate counter. So generally, it's halal food. So you see, the ecosystem is beautiful because we allow interaction, but at the same time respect each other. But to me, Prof, I'll add one more point here: the political issue. Racism to me is now very, very becoming very uh, becoming very what's unpleasant because of it's being used as political tools, and also the social media. Previously, we go home, we have landed line. Even then, we have to be very careful to speak with a friend because parents wouldn't like it. We have to do house chores. Huh? Now it's forever on the handphone. Your friend will be sitting next to you, you'll be messaging the friend WhatsApp. So the generation, the WhatsApp generation, needs more guidance. I think now with COVID, with the online learning, I realized that they are not independent. We are more independent because we were getting our hands onto the grass and ground and soil, water. We were really having real life. Now it's more artificial thing. I rest my case.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes. Oh, okay, okay. I want to go to Professor Dr. Nur Farida. Madam,
Okay.
my question is that you have to handle different cultural student, different communities, peoples, even International Islamic University. I think many countries people actually study there, and how you develop this global environment and how you manage different cultural students and community and researchers and what the university contribution in different countries as they are I think they have strong tie-up or relation with OIC. Yes.
Right. We have at one point more than 6,000 international students coming from more than 100 countries. And this would also include, countries like Russia, China, Europe, and also Australia, in addition to Middle East and also Southeast Asia and South Asia. So it's not, it's challenging, but the structure of the university is that we dedicate one office called International Office to handle issues to do with international students, their visa problem, their emotional support, because being away from home in a totally different culture can be quite trying for some. So our staff in that office will be made up of international staff as well, experienced international staff, sometimes graduates of IIUM. So they understand where the students are coming from. So we do have organized events and activities for our international. We are very inclusive. We also have, educational programs like what we call halakha. Halakha, how do you explain that? Yeah, I know halakha is
It's a circle. It's a religious circle.
religious circle where you talk about spirituality, not so much academic. You need to get in touch with that, because sometimes it's comforting when religion means hope. Religion means support system. So when you get into that, because some of these people come from ex-communist country, very detached from the practice and ritual of Islam. It's only when they come to us that they learn how to pray, they learn how to read the Quran, for example, and they learn about manners, because in Islam, adab or manners is very important. How you speak to the elderly, How do you speak to people younger than you? How do you speak to people older than you? How do you treat women? We teach them all this so that they become respectful of the elderly and of women. So I think in that sense, that's our contribution. But you must know that IIUM was set up to give education to students in war-torn countries, poor students, bright students who come from that kind of situation that would not have any opportunity to study. So what we do, we bring them to IIUM and we find them funders. We give them education, and then they return to their country and become leaders of their country. And that's why if you travel around the world, there'll be like one or two IIUM alum who is, bank governor of this bank or that bank, in Africa, in Bosnia. They are all our graduates. And I think this is very important. You asked earlier how Malaysia grow. I think one of the reasons is that when the government invested in young people and sent us abroad, we returned to the country to rebuild the country. Our generations were the one who built the city, that created the middle class. We did not choose to stay back in affluent countries because we are committed and we feel responsible to help our people, to help poor ones. And once we are established, once we are stabilized, then we help other people, neighboring countries. If you read the book of Jeremy, I can't remember, The Top Billion. He's a economist at Oxford, I think. The Top Billion, and his argument is that you cannot grow as a nation if your neighbors are poor, because they will go hungry, they will do criminal things, and they will invade your country. The influx. They will come in and want your job, want your food, and so on. So you have to help your neighbors grow with you. Then you will have a stable region. Indonesia, if it's affluent, they will not come here. They will help their own people. Singapore must know this. You cannot be the only rich one. You have to help your neighbors so that the region remains stable. Yeah, and we grow together. Right? Yeah.
Yes, Professor, I know, as you have a different aspect of the cultures and the value and economics, I want to know more. Like, what will happen next 2-3 years in terms of globalization, in terms of a regional relationship in ASEAN? What your understanding about this, the regional diplomacy in between ASEAN?
That's a very tough question. You're asking a lawyer. Okay. But with COVID-19, we can't travel anywhere now. Our airports will be opening soon, but we can see different landscape now. I can see, I don't know, there's a lot of conspiracy theory. There's a lot of things going around us, but Asia itself is a very strong. It's a very strong region. Yeah, you see, if you look at the Middle East, you look at US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, Australasia, all these countries who are supporting their most of the labor sector comes from Asia. I think I'm right with this. Yeah? If you look at the Middle East, we have the Filipinos, the Indians, the Bangladeshis, the Indonesians, and some Malaysians. Yeah, so you have majority Asian population serving. Even in US, we have the Asians there, and these Asians usually they send back their they remit back their income from wherever they are back to their country, and it makes their country stronger. And now with, like for example, Indonesia is going to change its capital to Kalimantan. So we may face some labor issues because most of the Indonesians will be going back where they have better opportunity in their own country and to build their own country. Yeah? In Malaysia, we owe our gratitude, yeah, to our Asian neighbors in Bangladesh, Indonesia, for helping us with the growth of our industry sector. So you see, the Asians to me are very strong people, very strong values. Is that because sometimes we have the political issues, yeah, For example, as I said, Sharif, I qualify. I don't know much about Bangladesh, but I know from my students that you have politicians who want to control things, yeah? Who want to rule forever. So this is where the brain drain happens, where the intelligent people. I always I'm amazed. The Bangladeshis are very intelligent. They come here, they complete their PhD, very smart. Yet they cannot go back. To the country to serve because there's a lot of hurdles for them. So they stay back in Malaysia or stay back in the Western countries, Europe region, Australia or New Zealand, the Australasia. Yeah? So this is where the country will lose out, brain drain. Yeah? I think the Asian region, if they come together, it will be a very strong region. Forget about America. America, I don't know. I've never felt threatened by America because they are just another nation like us. Yeah, they're just another nation like us. In fact, I think our hardworking culture can make us even more resilient and strong. Yeah, especially during this pandemic times. So I think Asia, for me, in future is very bright for Asia. Even now, we can see when the Asians come back from Middle East and other parts of the world back to their country because of the COVID. Because of course, foreigners, expatriates will be the first to be shoot out of the country when there's economic issues. So when they come back now, this is the time for the country to use this brain to develop the country. I always believe that a country can develop internally. You don't really have to rely on foreign investment. Because if you want to be sustainable, you have to look at agriculture. You have to look at more local products, yeah, instead of talking about import and foreign travel. Like now, Malaysia is encouraging local travel to liven up the tourism sector. Yeah? So to me, I strongly believe Asia as a region can merge strong.
Yes, this is interesting. Beside that, from IIUM, I know that when I was in Europe, even Oxford Unions and the
Mm.
Cambridge Union, we saw that IIUM has very good in debate and co-curriculum activities. Beside research, they do a lot of interesting activities. Even I personally attend one of the big debating show, and many interesting things actually IIUM do for leadership development of the student community. Can you share some of the things which is actually helpful for our international audience, like how actually Malaysian education system actually grew
Yeah.
and
We,
leadership quality?
we, we were among the first university, if not the first university, that paid serious attention to co-curricular activity. Students, they are given credits, yeah, for doing co-curriculum activities. They have to do uniform, they have to do sports, they have to do things of their interest, language, and so on, so that they become an all-rounder person. So that is, I think we believe that that makes the ingredient for leadership, because academic excellence is not the be all and end all. If you go for job interviews, you'll find if you're already there at the interview, you have passed the entry point, because entry point would be your academic excellence. But the real thing that would give you the win is your personality, what you can do as leaders, what are your experiences as student, how you manage your time. Are you just a scholar and researcher? Can you bring the money into the company, and so on and so forth? So all these can only be seen through what you do in your co-curriculum activity. And I think we have been very strong in this, and we even have credit now. I think everything is key in onto the system online, for a long time, not just recently. So leadership is very important, and especially we feel the responsibility because we are training students from developing countries, war-torn countries. We need to return them as leaders. We've got students from Nigeria where Boko Haram is. We want these people to change that, to fight Boko Haram, because Boko Haram may be people who don't really understand Islam. Because if you are practicing Muslim, you will not burn books. You will build libraries. You will build universities. So for those who don't know Islam, one way to know whether it's real Islam or not is to see how they behave. If they start bombing people, if they start, arsoning, if they start killing people, if they start, burning books, they are not part of Islam. You should know that, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Professor Ainul, I have a specific question on, like, Malaysia is a very good, I want to say, tourism country, and many travelers come to Malaysia. And COVID-19 situation, actually Malaysia go lockdown, and I think heavily. I think there are some damage and something in travel area and the tourism industry. But beside that, what are the industry in future Malaysia can grow? Mm, what your answer? Well, what do you think? Let's say how technology or other industry actually growing in Malaysia?
Actually, Sharif, for me, you know my style now. I want the country to focus on agricultural development. See,
Okay, very
during
good.
the COVID-19 time, what was essential service? Food. Food is very important. A country cannot rely on import for food. Yeah, it's very dangerous for us to rely on import. And we have abundance land, and our land is very good. We always make a joke. You throw a seed, it will grow into a tree. Our land is very fertile, actually. Yeah. So at the moment, I'm actually involved in a project with one of the state government. We are looking at a quite a big size of land, about 250 acres of land, where we are promoting organic farming, R&D, research and development, scientific research and development. We are bringing youth to come into the sector and training them with technology. We are also developing marketing techniques, how to market the product. In fact, in Malaysia, we are importing 80% of our beef, our meat, 80%. We're only producing 20% locally. So we have a market for 80% growth in the meat sector. So again, we are also bringing in some another aspect of our growth development is we are looking at producing organic fertilizers, organic pesticides from the waste in the farm, and this also will provide work for the local people. And another interesting aspect of this growth we are looking at is for people with small plots of land, we are bringing them in as shareholders in the cooperative society, where they can be part and parcel of the shareholders, a sense of belonging, but they also work in the place. So we have Malaysia have a successful land development scheme like FELDA. Have you heard about FELDA?
Yes, Felda.
Federal
Yes.
FELDA is a great concern. There's a bit of problem here in the management, but FELDA was created in the 60s by the second Prime Minister, Tun Abdul Razak, where he said that let's eradicate rural poverty. Now we're looking at urban poverty, rural poverty. So they cleared virgin jungle. Prof's place there in Raub area in Pahang. Pahang is the biggest state in the peninsular Malaysia. Sarawak is the biggest for the Malaysia, but Pahang is the biggest, where it's surrounded with rainforests and one of the richest state with natural resources. So they develop land to bring in settlers. So it's all organized. They're given a house space, a quarter acre and 10 acres of land for them. It's not small land, 10 acres of land. So they grow, previously was rubber, it's a commodity, and then now we have oil palm. Yeah? So the government gives them a lot of incentive. So the farmers are actually very rich. But sometimes when you are rich, you don't know how to manage. Again, I see that we need to give them skills. I did a research for rural development and entrepreneurship. So they need skills on managing finance, managing business. Yeah. So these are the things that we're looking in our new project. I've developed my business model canvas. You saw it on my Facebook. I put it yesterday. Yeah, what are the value propositions and everything. So this is we have land, plenty of land, which are abandoned mostly. People are not interested in doing development,
Agriculture.
agriculture, because slow production, because they want fast money. But now I think we have to go back to basic, because when you do agriculture, you're self-sufficient, food, and at the same time, you don't have to rely on export. Foreign exchange will be reduced, and the locals will have a better life, quality life. Yeah, like during the COVID-19, we had clean air, we had clean river, river of life. Yeah, Prof. Farida leads this project called River of Life. They do their best to get it, especially the IM River. But during
Yeah.
COVID, the river is clean. It shows that the people factor. So I think we have to re-educate people, and I believe that, to me, agricultural development, but it's not traditional style, but very imbued
High
with
tech,
some modern technology.
high tech, yeah.
Yeah, high tech.
Yes.
But and marketing, R&D must be there. So, and of course, marketing is very important, because if you produce, there's no takers, there's another person. That's not, it's a waste of product. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Ma'am, I have question as you running different kind of NGO related activities and the projects. So, can you share with our audience that what's the benefit or like valuable things you are doing with different communities and the people?
Um, I work with children and women
Mhm.
of underprivileged groups. Like at the moment, I'm working with urban poor kids, below 12 years old. What we do is that we teach them English through a Finnish education syllabus using app. This is created by a Finnish company based here in Malaysia. So we use their app to teach the students. There's no need for them to read because most of these kids do not read well. So the point of entry is that you don't need to know how to read. It's a play, Finnish education places a lot of stress on learn and play, a lot of stress on playing and learning. So this is what we are experimenting with our kids. So I spent my Sunday doing this with the urban poor kids in Kuala Lumpur on the fringe of the city. I also work with women. I belong to this NGO of Muslim women professionals. So we help, single moms and people who need help economically and so on, or people who have just got divorced and don't know what to do, where to go. So that kind of thing. I think Malaysia is becoming greater as a civil society gets stronger. So in the end, the government is not the sole center anymore. It's the civil society that takes over.
Mm.
Post-COVID showed us that. We did not rely too much on government's money. Of course, they should be given handouts and so on. There's only so much civil society can do. But civil society has been there to patch up, any gap that the government, I think, would have problem reaching out to places which is quite away from the center. And this is where the NGOs come in. And I think IIUM academics, we have always been activists in that sense. I think it comes from our strong sense of responsibility, strong sense of helping. That's in the tradition of Islam. So we would jump in and help where help is needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Ainul, what the concluding remarks you want to add for this session?
I believe that, as Prof said, we believe strongly that it's not only the government's role, the public must take responsibility for the country's growth and development as well. We are able to do it actually. The public, in fact, if the recently what we're doing with the law implementation, we are bringing a component called alternative services, where we strengthen the NGOs. NGOs are given the opportunity to help with creating awareness and also to bring people together. So NGOs play a very important role because the government officers cannot come down too much. Yeah, they're busy. Yeah, so we have NGOs who are on the ground. Yeah, they can meet people on the earth. It's very easy for them to come down and meet. So the government is now looking at the alternative services where they can engage NGOs to engage in creating awareness. And there's also sometimes we are also proposing that they give some budget, a little bit of incentive to the NGOs, especially for, Malaysians, we love food. When people come for activities, just provide some food and drink. Yeah. So this is happening. In fact, in my recent law project, I've already put one chapter on alternative services, where we say the NGOs must be given some structured role. If you go to Australia, they have, like, for example, when they're dealing with tenancy issues, they have Tenants Queensland, Tenants Victoria. So these NGOs, they're actually the NGOs, but very professionally run and managed, supported by the government, and they really provide very good services for the tenants. Tenancy, when tenants are involved in problems, the NGOs provide very good support. So we must learn. Actually, it's not that we cannot learn from the foreign countries, especially Europeans. We must notice that Europeans are very much into community service, which we are lacking. Asians, we must learn from them. So once the people are very strong in contributing to the community, coming back to the society, so this is where I think we can strengthen our Asian nation. If you go to Bangladesh, we have a society called BELA. Do you know Bangladesh Environmental Law Association?
Yes,
They're
yes, yes.
very, very strong. Yeah, very, very strong.
Mhm.
It's like Greenpeace in UK or on US also. So BELA is a very, I quoted them in my thesis. Yeah. So BELA is a very, very renowned NGO working for environmental protection. So see, it's
Mhm.
proven.
Yes.
So Malaysia, we have CAP, Consumer Association Penang. So these are the agencies that can come in to help NGOs lah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you for your very informative discussions. And today we learned a lot of about Malaysian policy, Malaysian education system, Malaysians techno related issues, especially how Malaysia can progress in futures, and how actually Malaysian community can build up a very good relation in between the community and in between the ASEAN community. And this is the global perspective we get from you, and we learn a lot of things, that how from micro level to macro level to global perspective, how we can grow together. That is the beauty of Malaysia. That is the economical aspects and the knowledge based community. If a country can grow with their knowledge community, and they can help more of their intellectual peoples, then we can ultimately achieve our objective. That is the learning for us. And country like Bangladesh, country like Pakistan, even country like Indonesia, even many countries from Africa and around the world, they think that Malaysia is a very good model for them. And Malaysians education systems and Malaysian research and Malaysians economical aspect is a very good hub for everyone. And how actually Malaysian make a global community, this is very like interesting learning for me, and learning for all of the young community. So thank you very much for your valuable time. Hopefully through this IBM TV, we will invite you more, and we will learn a lot of interesting things from your research, from your educational background, and from your NGO related activities. Thank you,
Thank you,
Professor.
Sharif. Thank you for having us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank you.
Sharif and
Right.
Ankit. I think
Right.
the other
Yes.
person is Ankit.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you both. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Prof. See you again.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Dr. Nur Farida, and
No
thank you,
problem.
Professor
My
Anil.
pleasure.